recording? Like, get that set up?
Oh, I've been recording this whole time.
Oh, all right. Well,
we're live, so hello, everybody.
Okay.
Round two.
Looks like a quick internet restart did the trick. All right. Reload the page. And,
Yep.
For some reason, my enter key is not working now.
Can you guys hear us, by the way? Like, chat?
Reload the page.
Okay, cool.
We've been having a good time.
Sorry, everybody. I changed the scene, and my internet died. I don't know what the coincidence is there, but we've used up the first 10 minutes of the show to discuss absolutely nothing. So we're going to jump right back into it. If you left, now's a great time to get those people back in here and give them a link back to the show. Because we've got a lot to talk about, starting with...
Sandy, hold on. We need to restart our recordings again. Me and Curly stopped.
Oh, do we?
I already got mine in. Sync up is going to be a hell of a time.
Oh, I can't wait to see all this stuff. Knox, just hit record, and I will. I'll mess with it later. So.
Oh, okay. Starting my recording.
Yeah, the sync will be a good time.
Okay. Well, good luck with that.
Alright, turning Curly down. He's a little loud. All right.
Oh
Okay.
man.
Here
We're
go.
We're here.
Holy Korean imports, because that's apparently what we're doing this off-season. FlyQuest, so much news. We've got the FLYFAM amateur team. People think we're going to import DEOKDAM or Ruler or Teddy. And according to LEC Wulu, we have signed Impact, SPICA, and EYLA. Well, sorry, not signed. Given them rumored to have given them some verbal contracts. So lots to discuss. Knox, so that I can get myself situated, tell me how this past week has been for you in terms of all the news coming out all the time, F5ing Twitter constantly. Talk to me about it.
It's been a mix of emotions. I keep thinking back to our Armchair GM stream. Oh, how long ago it was. How naive we were.
2 weeks ago.
Like, literally, back 2 weeks ago, I was calling for still having Tuke on the team. I was still saying possibility of having Afro on the team. Yeah. So, to suddenly go from... keeping some of our players who I thought were really good and still are really good. No, goodbye, all of 2022 FlyQuest. It is a whole new roster coming in. And normally for a lot of fans, that's like, holy crap, right? Like, that's a huge, huge change. I think with what Nick and Papa are doing with this roster this year, though, everyone should be excited. Like, the original FlyQuest fans of these players that are coming in, I think everything is screaming that it is going to be a good year for FlyQuest. So at the end of the day, I'm sad to see people like Tuke go because I really loved him, and I literally called him a franchise player, right? Like, I was asking for FlyQuest to make this man a franchise player, and then he's gone.
Yep.
So I'll hold the L on that one, but I think with what's rumored to be coming, it's an L that I'm willing to hold. So there's been ups, there's been downs. I think it's been a majority of ups, very, very good ones at that. I'm looking forward to seeing the actual official signings and being able to lock it in and being able to just like really head into the season going or knowing that it's just going to be a good year.
Yeah, I think it's way different than what we were expecting. I don't think anyone really expected this level of roster revamp. I mean, this is a complete... I mean, it's a 100% turnover.
Yeah.
Recycle everything, scrap it all, and start from scratch. But, I mean, arguably, maybe making upgrades in every single position if the rumors are to be believed. Curly, how do you feel so far about, because there has been sentiment in the community about the willingness of teams to just completely scrap a roster and move on in the, like, with the idea of like, ooh, we could maybe go 2-4 at Worlds instead of 1-5. So how do you feel about losing a team like this? Some of the players have been with the org for a couple years now, and we started seeing them as like, oh, are these cornerstone players for that eventual championship run?
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird position to be in, to be perfectly honest, because particularly it comes, like, the thing that got me was the second Takui, like, was announced to supposedly be going back to the LFL. And Takui for me was like the player I get behind on this roster, and like he needs to stay for the next 2-3 years as much as we can. And then like 2 days after we have our armchair GM, it's like he's gone. So I'm like, all right, that's crazy. And like, so I personally got really attached to this roster, even with the run. And so it's going to be very weird to just be like, all right, now I need to just jump to a whole new team. But on the other hand, the like rumored roster is looking really epic so far. Like Impact, I love his play style. Spica, if we really are getting him, he's, you know, proven himself as a really good NA born jungler. EYLA, I think, is a big thing. I'm intrigued with the move with Afromu, but having like that young talent in EYLA, like if there's anyone you get from the academy scene, it's got to be him. So that's really awesome. And then getting a Korean mid laner in Vikla, I think really does numbers for us, because mid lane was such a pivotal role throughout the entire year. Even if it wasn't like the backbone, it always was relevant. And so having Korean mid laner, which it's, you know, you have Faker, you have Zeka, like the LCK produces really awesome mid laners. So bringing that to our team should give us a huge step up against the rest of the competition next year. And then whatever the supposed ADC is, the three rumors also all really, really good players. And like, I think of Berserker, who was by the end of the season the best ADC in the LCS, coming from Korea as well. So I think the import slots used really effectively, having like good domestic talent. And then at this point, I would also consider Impact domestic talent because of how long he's been here. Like, I get the why people would frown upon the overhaul of the roster, but like if it's something like this, and it seems like some people also made their own choices to leave, like in specifically with Takui, so be it. You know, I'm ready to hop on the train and be like, let's go FlyQuest.
Yeah, some of what you just said there at the end is of particular interest to me, and it brings back an idea that I was just listening to last week's Hotline League, and someone on there mentioned, I forget if it was Peter Dunn or Travis Gabbard himself, mentioned that it's not always the case that an org is just cutting players. Sometimes the player themselves wants to go explore their options. So, like in the case with Cloud9, it's not necessarily the case that, oh, they cut Jensen. It could be the case that they made an offer to Jensen and he didn't agree to the offer and wanted to explore his options elsewhere. It's certainly the case that, or it could be the case that, okay, we made an offer to Jose Deodo and he didn't like the offer or had other thoughts as to what he wanted to do this offseason and decided to make the move himself. And I think most importantly, it's absolutely possible that Takui might have just wanted to go back home to France. This is a very possible thing. And so he could have just he could have just said, hey, I'm kind of done. I'm homesick. I want to go back to France. Please, sell my contract to some LFL org. And if that's the case, then so be it. Like, I can't blame any player or org. I can't blame any player, for wanting to explore their options to get into the most comfortable situation that they can be in for themselves. And because of that...
Sure, with someone of his condition, too, it's
Right.
probably just easier to be actually at home rather than in a different country, too.
Right. So it really isn't just the case, in my opinion, that orgs are just being like, all right, screw these 5 guys who we kind of built up over the last 1 to 2 years. It might just be the circumstances of behind the scenes that we just simply do not know. Nox, I mean, how do you feel about that? And maybe just delve a little bit more into the Takui moving on to France, or moving back there, and kind of the roster turnover itself.
Yeah, I mean, the turnover always sucks, especially for fans of the org itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to like follow these players, you want to be dedicated to these players. It's a huge complaint in the LCS in general. There's so much turnover. And it makes it hard to be a fan of any one team because it's like, well, I want to follow because of the player, and suddenly your player's gone. It's like, well, why do I want to stay attached to this org, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are all very valid complaints. And for FlyQuest specifically, my answers for that, and this doesn't really mean much coming from me because I've always been a fan of the org. I have not really been attached to any of the players that have been on FlyQuest. But for me, it's always been like Jose Diota was someone that we tried for 2 years, and it was very clear it just wasn't working out. Johnson we had for 2 years, and while I was more than okay keeping him for a 3rd year, I can understand wanting to let him go. It maybe wasn't necessarily the best. I would say a majority of the community was probably ranking him as only a mid-tier AD carry, and if FlyQuest wants to go for the win, that's clearly not good enough, right? Philip was someone that we brought in through Summer Split, and in most cases, as enjoyable as a character in person as he was, I don't think was quite up to snuff. And then, obviously, Kumo clearly wasn't because he was benched. Took, as we were just saying, very possible that he was homesick, and with someone with his condition, it's easier to take care of that back in France than it is here. So if he wanted to leave of his own accord, that's completely okay. If it ever comes out that it was FlyQuest kicking him, that's probably going to be a little bit of a sour note, but I have enough benefit of the doubt to believe that it was probably of his own volition heading back. And then probably the one big curious one is Afro, right? I mean, we brought Afro on last year. He was a big Christmas wish list for us. Sharks has nonstop praised him in our interviews with him and behind-the-scenes talks with him. There's just tons of Afro fans, right? So having him suddenly gone and maybe not even be in the LCS here, that's probably the one that hurts the most for FlyQuest fans and just fans in general. Mm-hmm. So whatever ends up happening to him, I hope he sticks around in some form, and that way it's not too bad. But at the end of the day, the one kind of saving grace is that we're bringing up EYLA, who is a fresh, new support player who's worked his way up through the scene, looks extremely good, I know he played in the LCO or the OPL briefly, but he's kind of NA talent right at this point. Like, we've developed him, and it's nice to see that we're giving this NA talent, even though he's Osh, a chance on the big LCS stage. So in terms of all the replacements we could have done, it's one that I feel is okay and appropriate to do.
EYLA is on that list of academy players who, alongside Yon, Tenacity, Busio, those guys, where if they are not getting like LCS starting spots this year, it's absolutely like, then at that point you just kind of throw in the towel for NA development, where it's like, okay, if these guys can't get starting spots, then what are we even doing anymore? I am so glad that we are the team to be picking up EYLA and giving him that starting spot, because I just think it's an absolutely incredible move. He was on my list. I had SPICA and EYLA on my list. I had Philip at the top lane. It's funny how we all kind of... Everyone who submitted rosters had various aspects that were close. Like Nox, you had Impact SPICA. I had SPICA EYLA. Curly, I will note, you have not gotten any of your wish list at all. But generally, there was a lot of Impact SPICA sentiment, and then like a couple EYLA, fans. But most folks wanted to keep Afromu, which makes it very interesting. And I do wonder kind of what his next step might be, if it is into that coaching sphere, if he's taking a step back for the time being, what he'll be looking to do for the future. I mean, considering the longevity of his career, he can probably afford to take some time off. You know, he has a pretty good stream presence, so he's not hurting in that realm. So I think he'll be fine. But it is interesting to see us move on from that veteran presence. But a veteran presence that's being replaced by Impact. Like, Impact is now the veteran on the team leading, you know, everyone else. And that is something I am really, really excited about. I think we're, you know, between him and SPICA, we're getting two players that can be, I mean, Impact is definitely top 3 in his role.
He's all pro level.
He's all pro level. SPICA, we know, is MVP all pro caliber. EYLA is one of the most hyped prospects in support in recent history, besides people like Tenacity and Kenvi. And then depending on the import situation, that could just really upgrade this team overall. So I think that's kind of what I want to talk about next, is the import situation, because this is a route, well, the import route is not one that we've never done before as an org. We have done some, you know, Korean imports in the past, but in recent history, mind you, I'm talking like
new FlyQuest.
New FlyQuest. Like
both of y'all's brands FlyQuest.
Right, like
not this FlyQuest.
Right. Well, I'm okay, 2020, you know, we imported as well, but like I'm talking like the Korean, like the splashy Korean import that I don't think you would have thought FlyQuest to make in, you know, the last 3 years. I mean, between 2020 and the 2022 season, that's 3 years where, in terms of imports, we stuck mainly to like European talent if we imported, and like one Latin American jungler. And I think there was also Ignar, but Ignar has kind of floated all around the scene for so long that it's hard kind of to count him as a Korean import at this point. So I think there's an obvious answer to this question, but I'm going to pose it anyway. What do you think? What do you guys think changed? Why now? And I think it's open for a lot of speculation. But why now are we gunning for, reported to be Vikla, KT Ralster mid laner, and another import AD carry who a lot of people think will also be from Korea? So why change the philosophy now? Someone go.
So, to reference another point, and I'll tie this into the one that you're asking, Sandy. Sanika in chat asked, or was pointing out rather, that during our Armchair GM stream, we did that before the Papa Smithy announcement, right? And she asked, if we had done that stream after the Papa Smithy announcement, would our roster, our Armchair GM rosters, have changed? My answer to that is no, because I initially thought that the new signing of our sponsor, the Florida Panthers, the NHL hockey team, I figured that we would be getting an increase in spending. I did not think it would be to the level that is clearly being rumored, right? So basically, that is why things are changing now. This sponsor has come in and said, we want you to spend. We want you to win. Go. And so I think that's pretty much what the takeaway is going to be. It was very, very funny because at the very beginning of the season, everyone's like, oh, FlyQuest is going to spend. I was like, yeah, we're going to spend. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to be spending more than the 100 Thieves or the Team Liquids or the Cloud9s. I figured we'd just catch up a little bit and we'd probably be in a more competitive spending range. I was terribly wrong, as it clearly shows, based off of these rumors. So To answer your question, Sandy, I think the reason why we're doing it now is because we have a sponsor who wants to have an org that will win. And basically they said, here's the money to do that. Now go win.
Yeah, Curly, how about your thoughts on this?
I'm going to say, definitely the money from the new sponsor of our team is really, really a lot deeper than I thought. Much like Nox. So yeah, I was also in when people are like, oh, FlyQuest is going to spend a lot. I'm like, no, that's not our style. We might spend a bit more, might throw one Hail Mary for a really good roster switch, and then still keep everything about the same. Apparently it was wrong. But I do think Papa Smithy also has something to do with it, because with his time in the LCK, the man has to have some really good connections and rapport with GMs, coaches, players, anyone from that scene, and or even people that might mediate between him and interacting with that scene. And so a man of his history, and you've seen how he built up the 100 Thieves League of Legends empire. He got them to a championship. That is off the back of Papa Smithy's philosophy. So him in tandem with Nick Fan and their desire to win, I think that is really what caused this overhaul, because we got Papa. I know Nick is ambitious. He's all right, we're going to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And so I do think Papa Smithy is a major impact on this, along with the yes, major impact on this, along with the increased budget. I think those are the two major factors.
Gotcha. All right, so I have a two-part question here as we continue talking about imports and importing in the mid and AD carry role specifically. So, talking about mid lane, EYLA reported from 50 to 90% confidence by Travis Gafford. I wouldn't be shocked if we end the stream tonight and Wooloo reports that EYLA's verbally agreed to sign with FlyQuest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Parker has a tweet ready and he's just waiting.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So I want to ask Nox you in a moment. I know you've been reviewing a lot of EYLA's VODs, so I want to get to you on that. But I think it's also important to have the AD carry discussion, because there's a lot of names out there. And the reporting is that it will likely be a Korean import ADC. Theoretically, it could also be EU. It could be from literally any region. Still not Brant's. Sorry for you Brant's fans. But several Korean AD carries, and the three that Travis Gafford put in his video most recently, DEOKDAM from Damwon Kia, I believe, Ruler of Gen G, and Teddy as well. Teddy, I believe, was on Kwangdong Freaks this past year. So.
Yeah.
Three names, all of which are at varying levels, but all have been hyped at one point in time. Teddy was a big name for a hot minute. DEOKDAM and Ruler both in Worlds super recently. So, Nox, just starting with you, let's get kind of a real brief 60-second rundown on your thoughts on EYLA. And then, Curly, I want to hear from you about that AD carry situation and how you feel about that DEOKDAM, Ruler, Teddy triangle that maybe the team is looking at right now.
So, 60-second rundown. If you've been following in our Discord, which you should join, by the way, and has been just linked in the Twitch chat.
Oh, yeah.
I was not high on EYLA at all. Start of the summer season, I was not impressed. He was consistently losing lane, was constantly down in CS, was not getting any roams off. It took him until 2 weeks after being in the LCK to get a good roam off and to get an actual gank off. Basically, I was not impressed and was like, why are we going for this guy? Post week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8, week 9, the man continued to steadily improve over and over and over each week. His damage numbers continue to go up. His involvement in team fights continue to get better. His roaming abilities started to improve even more. I understand the hype now. I still need to watch his playoffs. I need to see how he competes actually completely under pressure. But at the very least, it shows that he can improve. And you also have to consider at the end of the day, this is a Korean mid laner who's playing against the likes of Chovy, Showmaker, Baker, etc., right? The man can already hold his own, especially when it comes to North American mid laners. He will be an S-tier mid laner when he comes here. But from what I've seen lately, he only has more room to get better, and that's very exciting.
Perfect. Yeah, I think my thoughts on Vikla briefly is, he was on a mid-tier LCK team, not bottom of the league by, any stretch of the imagination. But I do feel like, by the end of the split, he did really start to shine on that roster as well. I feel like, in my opinion, a mid-tier LCK mid is still going to be leaps and bounds.
He's still going to be S-tier.
He's still going to be leaps and bounds over what a lot of the other NA teams can offer. And I just think that really bodes well for us in terms of what we can put together. I do have some other questions that I want to get to after this. Curly, let's talk about the AD carry situation. DEOKDAM, Ruler, Teddy. I think most people are kind of starting to presume DEOKDAM. For some reason, I'm not exactly sure why. Ruler just seems like it would be an insane get at this point. And I think people would be a little less excited about a Teddy signing. Still excited.
Yeah.
He's still a quality AD carry, especially, coming from Korea. But right, and it's just amazing to me that we are talking about the possibilities of Fly DEOKDAM or Fly Ruler. These are names I would never have associated with this org a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 1 week ago. When people were talking about, we're going to import an AD carry, I was like, cool. Yeah. What ERL AD carry are we going to land? I was like, all right, yeah, Neon, or, maybe we'll get Unforgiven. Who knows? Like, and so it's just, it's a little wild to me. So give me your thoughts on importing this position and any potential synergies with EYLA. I mean, where are you landing on this right now?
So I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think if importing a Korean ADC worked out real well for C9, so if we get one that might be able to outperform that, really, really good. When it comes to Teddy, haven't really watched enough LCK, haven't seen Kwangdong Freaks, and looking at history, looks like a very middle of the pack ADC just based on tournament results and stats from games. So I don't know much about him, but from DEOKDAM, his performance at Worlds, it looked very consistent. I think a grain of salt does need to be thrown in a bit because in their group was EG and G2, both of which had less than satisfactory group stage performances. So it might have been easier for him to look good there. But what I really look at is how Damwon Kia as a team was able to still stay near the top for the regular season, and then particularly the 2 deathless games against Gen G. So this guy has it in him to perform really, really well. And so I think it would be very, very confident. There are concerns of how he might synergize with EYLA. I don't know if there's going to be a language barrier or not. I don't know if there's going to be a style barrier or not. But one thing that actually makes me really happy is having Impact kind of as the mediator between these Korean imports who might not speak English as much, and Impact who's been speaking English and Korean, for a while in the professional scene. It might make it easier for the team to mesh overall. And so any potential barriers to communication should hopefully be broken down by the regular season. Ruler. If in the off chance Ruler is the ADC, I'm telling you right now, we are going to MSI. That's it. There's no It would have to be a huge flop of like team energy and direction and game style. Like it would have to just be such a disconnect between the players for this roster to fail if Ruler is in that slot, because he's consistently been a name that people know for the ADC slot. Even if you don't watch any LCK, you know Ruler by the time Worlds comes around or by the time MSI comes around. Like you hear about him. So he's that guy when it comes to the ADC role. And so yeah, if we landed him somehow, MSI. That's all I really need to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but like, so at this point, this roster is one, like, let's just say for sake of argument, it's like DEOKDAM or Ruler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you tell me it's Impact, SPICA. That's gonna be their mid jungle duo, SPICA. Impact, SPICA, VICLA, DEOKDAM, EYLA. I'm like, that's a championship contending team. Like, that's a team that's gunning for top 3, top 4, absolutely, no doubts about it. I do look at some of the other rosters that are out there. I mean, EG largely staying together, you know, except for, you know, we're taking Impact from them. So, but they still have Someday, Inspired, JoJo Vulcan. And FBI now joining as well, so you still have like a little Someday FBI synergy coming over to EG. But for me, this rumored roster is absolutely a championship contender just on paper alone. I trust Nick Fan and Papa Smithy, just Nick Fan based off what we've seen in the last few years in terms of being able to put together a roster. And Papa Smithy, his track record in putting together rosters over at 100 Thieves, to put together players that will work together well synergistically. And that is the most important thing for me about this roster. Is like, cool, we've got some really big names. We've got Impact, SPICA, EYLA, VICLA reportedly, DEOKDAM or Ruler reportedly. Like, these are massive, massive names. And of course my worry then starts to become, okay, how will they do when they have to get into scrims with each other? How will they do in terms of being friends with each other and communicating well? How will they do on stage when the lights are on and the pressure is there? I trust Nick and Papa to have an eye for that they're not just going to, like, throw names down on paper and be like, cool, roster, let's go, and not have any thoughts about the overall chemistry and makeup of the roster. But at the same time, I feel like it is still a worry that you have to have anytime you're bringing in 5 players who have really never played together before, except maybe in solo queue. Nox, what do you think about that? Do you have similar concerns about synergy, chemistry? Where are you kind of on that? Because I think everyone's really excited about the roster, but should we be a little like, okay, let's hope it works? How do you feel about that?
So one thing I'm continuing to look for, and I don't know if it'll ever come in the form of an announcement or if it'll be something that's just quietly done, but I'm looking to see if FlyQuest adds some form of staff that will be able to help accommodate these supposedly new rumored Korean players, right? Or I was actually, while you were talking and I was listening to you, I was also trying to look and see if Richard, who is the assistant coach for us currently, he's Australian, but I was like, is there any chance that he happens to speak Korean? Or I know Soul Strikes is part Korean. Does he actually speak Korean? He's someone that can help translate for our coaches or be a mediator for a team. That's kind of what I was trying to figure out. And so hopefully in the coming days we can figure that out. Because if none of those guys are able to, so Papa Smithy's actually answering in our chat right now saying that Soul was the head coach of a Challengers Korea team. So yes, he does speak Korean.
Well, there you go. I guess that does answer the question. Quite thoroughly, in fact.
I guess the further question is what role is Sol going to play in terms of is he going to be a mediator for these possible Korean players, or is he going to continue to be? And I'm sure he will have some role, right? But is he going to be like a dedicated spot for that? Basically, are there going to be other players or people mentioned that are going to help out with this? So, and even Sonique is now adding in. There's also staff outside of Team Ops that speak Korean, I believe. So it sounds like we have the infrastructure in place to be able to help these players out if they do come. So actually, thank you guys for answering this. And this is why you should come tune in live, because you can figure this information right here with us. Basically, we can find out, yes, we have the infrastructure in place, apparently. And so that actually helps reinstill a lot of confidence that I have in actually bringing these in. I do think we will have the synergy. And honestly, the past 30 seconds, my hype just shot up even more. Yeah. So yes, I think we will be okay. I'm not worried about it. It sounds like we've got everything in place to make sure this is a successful, synergistic team.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing we do know is Impact's English is fluent, right? Like
for sure, yes.
And we know, as need be, he would be in game. He would be able to translate, you know, for Vikla and AD carry to SPICA EYLA, and so that is not like a concern for me. I think where I start to think about is like, okay, do their play styles mesh together well? Are we going to all be on the same page in terms of how we review the games and, you know, in terms of training and progress, and what's everyone's goal here? Are we here to win, or are we here to like aim for playoffs? Like, what's kind of the goal? And I think, based off of what we've talked about with Nick and Sharks before, this seems like the roster that is built to go for gold. And let me just say, after a couple years of rosters whose aims may or may not have been just kind of make playoffs, oh, this feels good. This is very... This is exciting. Like, this is a team I'm legitimately excited to tune into every week and see what they do, because the possibilities to me right now are endless. I do want to wrap this discussion up and move over to some of the other stuff that's been coming out recently. Curly, I want to hear if you've got any thoughts on like chemistry synergy stuff and how you're feeling about all of that discussion.
The big thing is that is always something that like no matter what roster you have, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, all right, are they going to work well together? And like with our summer team, I think this was like, of what I've ever watched for FlyQuest, that was the tightest knit team we had. We were on the same page about everything. It didn't bring us a great success, but we played as a team. And so, of course, with the big overhaul, because that's actually one thing coming from, you know, Western New York, where you have the Bills who like to make huge changes when they lose a season. It's something I've always been like, the huge changes lose identity. Is that going to affect it? So that's a big question mark in the back of this whole thing. But I think that the sooner we get the team all together, which I don't know what like the logistics look like on the background. I don't know how soon we plan to get the supposed imports here in America. I know, if I remember correctly, we actually got Dakui in fairly early last year. Yes. So the sooner we can get everyone playing together, and not even just playing together, just being a team together, like hanging out, finding out what it's like to work in the practice, interact, like getting that synergy, the sooner it starts, I think the better we get. I will be honest, I am a bit nervous that just because it's going to be coming from a good variety of angles, that even if we are a powerful team, it might take lock-in to get us up to speed with each other. And I'm okay with that, because lock-in isn't the most impactful tournament. I don't like saying it's a joke of a tournament, because I think it's very useful. But it's like not do or die. It's a good thing to get people started up, get ready for the season. And so I'm all right if we end up middle of the road, have our same curse of losing to TL in lock-in, if that helps us work out the kinks for the spring season. So I guess my answer at the end of the day is maybe things will work perfectly, maybe they won't.
Yeah, that's very fair. Knox, any response to that at all?
No, I pretty much agree with everything Curly said.
Yeah.
I think lock-in will just, whether it's good or bad, I think it will be a good warm-up for us and a good setting for the team to get synergized.
Totally.
And then we can hit it hard in spring and summer.
Agreed. All right, and now for a topic that we are very excited.
I'm so excited. I'm so happy about this. I'm so
honestly,
happy
this
about
might
this.
like somehow yeah, FLYFAM amateur.
I think like in a weird way, this show, all three of us, are almost like more excited for the amateur team announcement than we are for the actual LCS announcement.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because we are all like such big amateur academy fans, that we really appreciate this scene, this aspect of the LCS ecosystem so much. And repeatedly on this show, since
there are receipts since even 2021.
Yeah, since we started the show in like March, April 2021, we have been asking for a FlyQuest amateur squad. And it's finally here. Do not take this away from me. I am so excited to see who gets on this squad. I mean, for me, it's like it's 5 more players to root for, and that's just the most exciting thing. 5 more players to get invested in their stories and watch them get better. I'm hopeful that, and here's what and I guess we can talk about what we're hopeful for from this squad. I guess I'll just start first. Is I'm hopeful that it is a mix of known amateur talent and unknown amateur talent, where they go out, Loyota does his insane giga brain, mega galaxy brain scouting, and finds like 2 or 3 incredible like diamonds in the rough, and throws that together with a couple really established amateur players who have been in the scene and have started to prove themselves already. I'm interested to see if any of our academy guys actually end up moving down to this amateur roster. I don't know if that would be the case. I feel like players like Yuji and Spirax proved themselves enough to stay within the academy scene. I don't think they need to move down. But I would be curious to hear y'all's thoughts on that. But yeah, ultimately, I'm looking for not 5 brand new players to this ecosystem, and not like 5 guys who've been around already a few times, but like a real nice mixture of that. A little bit of like veteran amateur talent and brand new promising prospects. Curly, how about you? What are you looking for from this amateur roster?
I think you definitely put it best. Like having a mix of known amateur level talent and new talent would, honestly, I think that's the way you should approach any new season roster for something like this, of like a little bit of old, a little bit of new, because especially like I think to Philip and how we pulled him out of nowhere last year, threw him into academy for a couple weeks, and then within the next year he was up in the LCS playing and like holding his own pretty well for someone who's only been in the scene for a year. And so I trust that our systems are able to find these young talents that can be developed, and so I'm sure it's going to be that good mix, and I think that's the best way to find success. And I'm honestly, the biggest thing for me is, roster aside, I'm just proud that we are able to be like one of the 6 teams making the, I guess, most difficult part of a sort of groundbreaking move, because, you know, if you have an LCS team, you automatically are in the NACL, but it's those 6 provisional teams that it's like, all right, you got to try to get in there. And so the fact that we got in there, I think, is a huge thing. And the longer we can stay in there, the better, because having 3 tiers of an ecosystem is great for internal development as an org. It's great to like be that org that provides opportunities. And I think that, like, based on how I think the FlyQuest philosophy is, and especially adding Papa Smithy to that mix, I think we are going to be really good for the future of NA as a region, um, with us having our hands in it. And so I think like whatever the roster, I'm just happy to have 5 more people to root for, have 5 more emotes in the Discord, have 5 more jerseys to potentially order off of the store, like all that stuff. Like I'm happy to expand because Fly expansion is also something I've wanted in the back of my mind, but I've been patiently waiting for, you know?
Yeah.
And so this is a great way to see it happen.
I mean, and now now we can move on from asking for an amateur team to asking for that Valorant team. That's clearly the next step in FlyQuest domination.
I'm not to take it one step at a time. I'm just happy to have finally gotten an amateur team.
Yeah.
Do I want that in the future? Yes, don't get me wrong, but I'm just going to appreciate we have a tier 3 team right now, and I'm going to just cherish it.
Why not have a tier 3 Valorant team as well, Nox? I don't see anything wrong with this, as well. But look, I mean, no, this is, if you think about just in terms of the organization as a whole, right? I think this is a really positive development for us. We have 2 Smash players who consistently do, top 16, top 8, top 4 even in their, the competitions that they enter. We've now moved beyond the required LCS and Academy teams to including a 3rd team in our LCS ecosystem. So the organization clearly is at a point where it seems stable enough to move forward with further expansion. And I think FlyQuest fans should be taking that very positively, should be very excited about that, because it marks another, data point in the trend of FlyQuest continuing to grow in stability, grow in fandom, things like this. It's no longer, okay, it's the LCS and Academy team, and they have the Academy team because they're required to have an Academy team, and that's it. No, we went from 1 Smash player to 2 Smash players to now we have, another 5 players under the amateur banner. All of these things are very good developments and positive data trends for the organization. Nox, I know you're really excited to talk about this amateur team,
dude. So
I'm finally going to turn over the stand to you. Let us have it. How excited are you, brother?
This one goes to 11, my dude. I'm thrilled. The moment this was announced, because it was announced just a little bit before the show, I've been doing nothing. I don't care about Korean 80 carries that are going to the main team. Ever. I've been actually nonstop looking at all the rosters from Proving Grounds Open Qualifiers 1 and 2 of this past summer, and I've already been kind of theorizing in my head, okay, here's kind of who I'd want. Here's who I'd want to probably develop. Because you were talking earlier about how it would be nice to have some veteran amateur. It's kind of weird phrasing, but whatever, you get the point. Some veteran amateur players as well as some brand new, never before seen amateur players. And I've already kind of got an idea of I'd love to see for some top laners, I want to see Dragoon. I'd love to see Phasiel make a reappearance. Porsche was very good. Junglers, I would like to see Actor or Munchie. Trickster is fantastic. The rumored possible return of NXI would be sick. Roddy Bob, I've always been a huge fan of, mainly because I got him listed to his commons a little bit. Blaze is always super fun. I think he's really, really good. Oh man, I don't want to go through everything, but the point is there's so many options and there's so many different theorized teams that I could come up and play with that I'm I really want to see what Loyota came up with, because he's kind of our head of scouting. I kind of want to see what Papa Smithy's own take on it is and what he would like to see, as well as Nick, because all these guys have their own ideas. And shit, dude, I could talk about this for ages. I'm just thrilled to see what we come up with.
Well, give me.
If you can't tell, I'm excited.
Just give me what would your dream amateur roster look like? Not just because Papa Smithy is in the chat, but maybe just drop us that dream amateur roster, for kicks and giggles,
Oh man.
Okay, so the dream amateur roster, and I'm not saying this with any synergy in mind or how the play styles would be or learning or anything. It's just players that I really would like to see be under our brand. I'm gonna go Dragoon, Raptor into probably Town. I really love Town, but I know that's very much like CLG Faith's people. I'd like to see Psycho. I thought Psycho was really, really interesting a lot of the time. And then for support, who would I want to go for support? Rovex. Rovex, of course. Like, I'd love to see Rovex be under us. Or Plux. Rovex or Plux. Both are really, really good. So yeah, that's kind of my, like, off the top of my head, no real major thought into it. Like, players that catch my eye that I would love to see be under FlyFAM.
Perfect. I mean, I think ultimately, just the very existence of an amateur roster is exciting for us as a show, as individuals. It's going to be a good time. Lots more for us to cover, which is always great to have more to talk about. So, you know, we'll have so much more to cover, more games for us to watch, which I'm sure will be fantastic for us and our schedules. But hey, it's all worth it, right? It's all worth it. All right, we've kind of covered the main news. I believe it is Free Agency Eve. It's kind of started over in Korea already, and I believe it fully comes into effect tomorrow as well. Last kind of thing, actually we have like one more thing that we are going to talk about FlyQuest related, but I last thing related to free agency that I want to hit on. Question to you guys. What's been the most surprising aspect of free agency so far for you? And I mean, we can talk about this in both NA, Europe, thing, like whatever, it could be a global thing, whatever, but like what's been the most surprising aspect for you guys so far as we are on the eve of free agency?
Charlie, you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, for me, I guess the most surprising thing is like, this is going to sound so strange, but basically how much of a mess the West has been, if I'm being perfectly honest. Because it's like, last year I feel like I would find out like a couple tidbits every week and slowly develop more theories, and this year I felt like I knew nothing, and then everything exploded in the last week, you know? So it's like there's been so many question marks around the LCS and LEC and who's going where, what leagues look like, what like rosters look like, are there any good ADCs, who can we get, like all that. It's just like been so strangely like compared to last year, and so it's been kind of wild because I'm like sitting here, I've been waiting for the moments like today where we're like, all right, we have solid theories of what our roster and a lot of other rosters are going to be. And yeah, so that's been the most surprising thing for me. And I think another thing for me, it's like a little bit surprising that we were able to pull SPICA away from the TL double lift thing, if that ends up being true. So like I think that's the one like actual roster move surprise, because everyone was like, this is the big trio package, they're all going to be on the same team, and we're like, yoink. So yeah, that's it for me.
Nox, how about you?
I think for me, and I may have had a bad perspective on this, or my perspective may have been a little skewed, but with basically how everyone was saying that this offseason, like, teams would be going cheaper, so to speak. I guess there's never been any like price points released or anything, right? I was really hoping that there would be more academy or tier 2 talent from NA making its way up, and there's a fair amount-ish. Currently, off of the rumored rosters, I count 5 players coming from academy to the LCS, which that's not bad, and I may just be mistaken, and I'm not sure what the past year's promotion number count was, but I guess I was really hoping for more. I think there was a couple more, and I mean, we're kind of a defender of this, but at the same time, it's kind of the level of imports that are like, clearly we're going for the win, so it's a little more acceptable. But there's been far more imports coming over that are kind of like, where did you think of like getting this from? Like, Diplex, I mean, I know is rumored to be very good. Boogie from LLA, I know was very good in LLA, but it's kind of an odd import. Stuff like that. I was really hoping to see more tier 2 talent from North America make its way up. And maybe, I don't know, I may be completely wrong. This may be like a record-breaking year. And it's like, damn, we did good this year, right? We got to 5. But I don't know. I guess maybe I was thinking like we just have more.
Yeah.
I just thought we'd have more. So
yeah.
I think that's probably been the part that's probably most blown my expectations.
Yeah. I think what's been most surprising for me is some of the LEC turnover. What's really interesting is kind of that like all-pro McDonald's roster that is kind of floating around out there. Alfari doesn't have a team. Upset doesn't have a team. I know there's a few other players who are, very, very talented who don't have teams to start for next year. And it was kind of a similar situation, I recall, last offseason where LEC basically said, okay, here's a bunch of like really good players, but we're going to bring in a lot of ERL talent instead who's unproven and see how it works out. And I don't know if it really like worked out for them in the long run based off of just like their World's performance. Like Rogue did, okay, but I'm not sure it really paid off. So it's surprising to me that LEC teams seem to be taking a similar approach this year. However, maybe they've learned from their mistakes and they've been a little bit more judicious about what players they're bringing in. But a few surprises for me, like Unforgiven, like gone from Mad Lions after just a year. I mean, Mad Lions had like the weirdest year ever. I mean, they start doing absolutely horrible in spring, bring in Niski to replace Reeker, and then they end up just popping off and going to Worlds, and now their roster looks very different. XL is a roster that's actually kind of looking kind of jacked, and I'm excited to see what they can do next year. So a lot of really interesting stuff around LEC. And then, like, the final thing I'll say before we move on, LCK is doing yet another, like, massive shuffle. Nongshim Red Force just announced that they're dropping, like, everybody. Canna, Dread, BDD, Ghost, Effort, Snowflower. Like, those guys are all gone. Or they're now all free agents. And DRX, also all free agents as well. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those players re-sign with DRX. But, like, the World Championship team, all 5 of their players, free agents. So the LCK roster shuffle is going to be really fascinating to watch. I'm really excited to see what teams come out of that. Where, if some of those players do end up going overseas, where they go. If they go LPL, there's rumors that some current LPL players that are Korean are coming back to LCK. That could be really interesting. So, lots to talk about. All right. Final thing, we do have to hit on the FlyQuest Winter Solstice drop.
I was like hoping you'd do this. I was hoping you'd.
Of course. How could I?
Oh my
how could I
god!
miss
Yes.
this? We are going to go to the presentation mode, of course. While I
yes.
While I
so we can look
up,
at this beautiful collection.
Shop.flyquest.gg.
A thing that everyone should
actually,
have bookmarked.
Is that? Yeah, that is. Okay, perfect. All right, so here's the Winter 22 line. Let me get a let me get like a window. Boom.
Also, in advance, be prepared for a flashbang, everyone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's not gonna be too. All right, so we got the bomber.
It's a white website.
So we got the bomber.
Woo!
Looking pretty good.
Dude,
pretty hot. This is the review.
That version of the logo, because like when Fiend dropped that, she likes to make abstract versions of the logo for all new merch.
Yeah.
Like that version of the Q looking really, really cool. Definitely. I like that little.
Completely.
What kind of plant would that be? Like it's a viney.
This
type of plant.
The back of this bomber is
the back is the. Oh.
It's cracked. It's just.
It's so good.
It's really good.
It's just so good.
All right. Here's that
little tag right there.
Everything up in separate tabs. All right, here's the crew neck. Also looking really good. That's the front.
Again with that really cool
blank
logo.
on the back. I think it looks really good.
I like that they included the purple because that is technically one of the tertiary brand colors, and it doesn't get much.
Yeah, it does not get a lot of love. Established 2017. Basic Winter Solstice tee. I think this is really cool. Actually, I love this minimalistic concept. You can
both versions look really good.
Yeah, you can get this in both black and white as well. I think both versions look really good.
Show off the white real quick. Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then here's the joggers. Looks really good. Looks very cozy. And then you've got like, a nice little patch there as well. So that is pretty dope. All right, and then we've got a beanie. Got the logo right up front. Looks good. FlyQuest on the back.
Wish I could wear hats. Damn it.
I used to wear a lot of beanies like this, and I've kind of moved on to just like actual hats, so that's unfortunate. And then finally,
I still occasionally wear a beanie, so this was right up my alley.
The thing I want the most that I cannot convince my girlfriend to let me buy is the FlyQuest flag. Boy, do I want
Who
this.
needs to convince her when you can just drop $25 and be like, oh boy, look what showed up.
Oh no, I bought this flag. Whoops. And you've also got the Showcase Greatness flag. I think all these items are really good. I really like the minimalist approach here. It's not flashy. There's not, like, so much going on that you can't, like, that it, like, takes over your entire outfit. So I think it's, everything looks really, really, everything looks really good. I don't think there's a bad item in here. So that is really dope. For me.
It looks really classy too.
It does. Each of you name your favorite item from the drop before we close out.
Gotta be the bomber. The bomber's just cracked. It's just goated. Like, what else need I say?
Yes.
The bomber is really cool, but I'm actually gonna say the flag because I've been wanting a FlyQuest flag all year.
Oh yeah. Like
I've just been thinking it, like, because I'm like, especially when I saw Worlds and I saw like all the different like cheering stuff that LCK and LPL fans bring with them, and all the different ways they can support their team. I'm like, I need a flag. I need something I can bring to LCS finals. Totally. And then they drop this, and I'm like, let's go.
And there it is. It's perfect. Alrighty. Well, with all that said, we are at the end of our time tonight. So, thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of Flight Check. Free agency starts tomorrow. We will be back next week, I'm sure, to run down some of the official signings as they start to trickle in. I'm sure there will be a FlyQuest announcement as soon as we end the stream tonight or early tomorrow morning. So there you go. Be on the lookout for that. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. We'll be reacting instantly to all of the major free agency news. So you can catch the show at Flight Check Crew, myself at SantosDB, Nox at NoxWar with 2 R's, and Curly at Curly_QQ_. Make sure to hop into the Flight Check Discord as well, where all kinds of esports discussion and otherwise takes place. If you missed any part of this episode, the VOD will be up on YouTube tonight or tomorrow morning. If you're watching that and would like to catch the show live, we broadcast the episode usually every Monday night, usually at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at twitch.tv/FlightCheckCrew. Nox, any final notes before we wrap up?
Just keep an eye on the FlyQuest Twitter is all I'm going to say for now.
Swear to God. Yeah, there it is. All right, Curly, how about you? Any final notes or shout-outs before we wrap up?
Final notes and shout-outs. In the Smash scene, I believe, I need to check the tournament, but it is J-Muck with his partner IBDW. Yes. I personally like to call it JBDW. Got first in the doubles tournament this weekend.
Yes. Yeah,
so good looks there. Success on the Smash scene.
Absolutely.
You know?
Looking good.
And shout out to Hooli for making the best new image in FlyCord, putting the honorable Tim Kench on the face of Papa Smithy.
There you go.
It's the perfect neutral ending to the war.
Yes.
It's something, all right. There is something.
Alrighty. Well, as for myself, shout out to the U.S. men's soccer team for grabbing that draw today. They've got matches against England and Iran coming up in the next week. Let's make it out of groups. NA out of groups. Let's get it. USA out of groups. All right, we'll be back next week to discuss free agency and all the craziness that is going on. But for now, stay safe out there. Please do not forget to hit the head on the nail. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Thanks for sticking with our technical difficulties tonight. Adios.
Peace, y'all.